My parents laughed when I told them I was spending my inheritance on the backyard. They stopped laughing when I showed them exactly what I was prepared to do to keep it. My backyard used to be a joke. It wasn't a yard so much as a sun-scorched patch of dirt where hope went to die. We're talking cracked clay soil, a few sad, anemic weeds, and a rusted-out swing set from my childhood that leaned like a drunk. It was an embarrassment, but to me, it was a canvas. For as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with landscape design. While other kids were playing video games, I was sketching out garden plans, studying irrigation systems, and devouring books on native plant species. My dream wasn't to be an astronaut or a rock star. It was to create a living, breathing work of art. When my grandma Rose passed away 2 years ago, she left me a significant inheritance. Not life-changing money for most people, but for a 19-year-old with a singular passion, $80,000 was the key to the universe. My parents, bless their clueless hearts, thought I'd use it for a down payment on a condo or invest it. When I told them I wanted to use it to transform the backyard, they laughed. "Sure, kiddo," my dad said, patting me on the back. "Knock yourself out, just don't kill the one tree we have." They saw it as a hobby, a phase I'd get over. They gave me their verbal permission, signed a piece of paper I'd written up stating that any permanent fixtures I installed with my inheritance were my property, and then promptly forgot about it. They never, for 1 second, took me seriously. That was their first mistake. I didn't just plant a few flowers. I went scorched earth on that pathetic yard. I rented a mini excavator and taught myself how to use it, digging trenches for a complex drainage and sprinkler system. I spent a month just amending the soil, trucking in tons of compost and loam until the ground was rich and black. I laid over 500 square feet of hand-cut flagstone for a multi-level patio, my knuckles bleeding and my back screaming in protest. I built a cedar pergola with my own 2 hands, its beams intricately carved in a Japanese style. The centerpiece was the koi pond. It was my magnum opus. I dug it myself, 10 feet across and 4 feet deep, with a biological filtration system hidden by a cascading waterfall I constructed from moss-covered river stones. I installed underwater lighting that made the water glow at night. The fish themselves cost a small fortune, each one a jewel of orange, white, and black, gliding through the pristine water. The $80,000 vanished, but not into thin air. It was in the mature Japanese maple that cost $5,000 to crane into place. The subtle, low-voltage lighting that made the whole yard look magical after dusk. The 100-plus varieties of perennials that ensured something was in bloom from March to November. It was 2 years of my life. Every weekend, every summer evening. It was my sweat, my blood, my soul, made tangible. And it was magnificent. My parents' laughter had long since turned to awe. Suddenly, their house was the one where everyone wanted to hang out. They hosted barbecues on my patio, sipped wine under my pergola, and showed off my koi pond to their friends as if they'd willed it into existence. "Oh, this old thing," my mom would say with a wave of her hand. "My son just tinkers around a bit." Tinkers. Right. I didn't mind, though. I was proud. I loved seeing them enjoy it, and I figured they finally understood what this meant to me. They finally saw me. That was my mistake. I came home from my part-time job last Tuesday to see a strange car in the driveway, a pristine black sedan. Walking around the side of the house, I heard voices. My parents were on the patio with a well-dressed couple, all of them holding champagne flutes. The man, a smug-looking guy in a blazer, gestured around the garden. "Honestly, Margaret," he said to my mom, "this backyard is what sold us. Our offer stands, and we want to close as soon as possible." My blood ran cold. The champagne flute in my mom's hand trembled slightly as she saw me. The smile on her face was brittle, fake. "Oh, honey, you're home," she chirped, a little too brightly. "The Millers are just admiring your handiwork." The man, Mr. Miller, turned to me and grinned. "So you're the green thumb. Your parents told us all about your little project. It's a fantastic selling point. Really adds to the property value." He said it like he was complimenting a child's macaroni necklace. I just stared at my parents. My dad wouldn't meet my eyes. He was intensely studying a crack in the flagstone, a stone that I had placed. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. My mom took a nervous sip of champagne. "Well, honey, it was such a wonderful offer. We just couldn't refuse. The Millers are giving us way over asking price, all because of this gorgeous yard." She said it like I should be happy for them, like I should be proud that my soul's work had fattened their bank account. The rage that started coiling in my stomach was white hot. They hadn't just sold the house. They had sold my dream. They had sold my inheritance. They had sold me. Mr. Miller, oblivious, clapped his hands together. "We can't wait to host our first garden party here. The koi are particularly stunning. We'll be sure to take good care of them." That was it. That was the line. The thought of this smug stranger feeding my fish, sitting under my pergola, claiming my sanctuary as his own. Something inside me snapped. I turned without a word and walked towards the shed where I kept my heavy-duty tools. The Millers and my parents watched me, confused. My mom called out, "Honey, where are you going? Don't be rude." I didn't answer. I just swung open the shed door, my eyes landing on the long, heavy-handled sledgehammer leaning against the wall. Then I looked past it, at the gleaming 5-gallon buckets of quick-setting concrete I had left over from setting the pergola posts. An idea, terrible and beautiful, began to bloom in my mind. They wanted the garden? Fine. But they weren't going to get my garden, especially not my koi pond. I hefted the first 50-pound bucket of concrete mix, the plastic handle groaning in my hand. The walk from the shed to the edge of the koi pond felt like a mile. My parents and the Millers were babbling behind me, a confused chorus of, "What are you doing?" and "Honey, let's talk about this." I ignored them. I set the bucket down, pulled the utility knife from my pocket, and sliced the paper lid clean off. The fine gray powder sat there, an omen of what was to come. "Son, put that down," my dad said, his voice taking on that warning tone he used when I was a kid. It used to make me flinch. Now it was just noise. I looked him dead in the eye. "You don't get to call me that right now." Then I tipped the bucket. A thick gray cloud billowed out and then plunged into the crystal-clear water. It hit the surface with a heavy thump hiss, and the pristine pond immediately turned into a murky, swirling mess. One of my largest koi, a magnificent Jin-Rin Showa I'd named Keiga, thrashed near the surface, its brilliant orange and black scales suddenly muted by the spreading gray poison. My mother let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Mrs. Miller shrieked, "My God, the fish! He's killing the fish!" Mr. Miller stormed towards me, his face purple with rage. "Have you lost your mind? I'll have you arrested for destruction of property." He reached for me, but I was already moving back towards the shed for the next bucket. I turned and shoved him back, not hard but enough to make him stumble on the flagstones. I had laid. "Get your hands off me," I snarled. "And for the record, it's only destruction of property if it's not your property." I grabbed the second bucket. As I walked back, I looked at my parents. My mom was openly weeping now. My dad just looked broken, defeated. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Why?" I laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "You're seriously asking me that? You stood here on the patio I built drinking a toast to the sale of my inheritance. Did you think I was just going to pack up my trowel and wish you well?" I gestured to the Millers. You sold them a lie. You sold them something that was never yours to give. I punctuated the sentence by dumping the second bucket of concrete into the pond. The water was thick now, a sickening gray sludge. The waterfall, my pride and joy, sputtered as the slurry began to clog the intake for the pump. I have a contract, I said loudly for the Millers' benefit, signed by both of them. It states that all permanent fixtures purchased and installed by me using my inheritance funds remain my exclusive property. Funny how you forgot to mention that during the negotiations, isn't it? My parents' faces went from broken to horrified. They knew exactly what I was talking about. They had signed it without a second thought, patting me on the head for being so formal about my little hobby. Now that little piece of paper was their undoing. Mr. Miller looked from me to my parents, his smug confidence finally cracking. Is this true? Did you sell me a house with major features that you don't legally own? My dad just stared at the ground. That was all the answer Miller needed. Mrs. Miller was already on her phone, her voice shrill. Yes, I need the police, 1425 Elm Street. Their son is destroying the backyard. Yes, the one we're buying. He's gone insane. Police. Good. Let them come. Let them see this. I was done with the concrete. The pond was a tomb. The pump gave one last gurgle and fell silent. The silence was deafening, broken only by my mother's pathetic sobs. I felt a pang of something, watching the life drain out of my creation. It did hurt. It hurt like hell. But the betrayal hurt more. I walked back to the shed, the eyes of all four of them burning into my back. They were probably expecting me to lock myself inside to hide. I didn't. I came back out with the sledgehammer. It felt perfectly balanced in my hands, heavy, final. I walked past the dead pond, past my shell-shocked parents, and past the furious buyers. I stopped in the middle of the flagstone patio. I looked at the spot where they had all stood, clinking their champagne glasses, celebrating my erasure. I looked at Mr. Miller, who was still sputtering about lawyers and lawsuits. You wanted the backyard, I said, my voice calm and even. You can have the dirt. The rest is mine. I raised the sledgehammer high over my head, the setting sun glinting off the polished steel. My muscles coiled, all the pain and rage of the last hour channeling into a single, focused point. My mom screamed my name, but I didn't listen. All I could hear was the whistling of the air as the hammer began its descent, aimed directly at the perfect hand-cut stone at the heart of my patio. This wasn't just destruction, it was a reclamation, and I was just getting started. The first impact was deafening. The sledgehammer met the flagstone with a crack that echoed through the unnatural silence of the garden. A web of fractures shot out from the point of impact, and a chunk of the 2-inch thick stone shattered, skittering across the patio. The shock of the blow traveled up my arms, a satisfying jolt that seemed to realign something deep inside me. I immediately raised the hammer again, bringing it down on the next stone, and the next. Crack, crack, crack. It was rhythmic, brutal, and cleansing. Mrs. Miller shrieked again, fumbling with her phone as if trying to shield its lens from the carnage. Mr. Miller was shouting, but his words were just a buzz in my ears, drowned out by the percussive symphony of my rage. You're a maniac! You'll pay for this! Every penny! It's already paid for! I roared back, swinging the hammer in a wide, powerful arc that sent stone fragments flying. I paid for it! This is just me collecting my property! I worked my way across the patio with a terrifying efficiency. This wasn't a wild, uncontrolled rampage. It was methodical. It was deconstruction. Every stone I had carefully leveled, every joint I had painstakingly filled with polymeric sand, I was now systematically obliterating. My parents watched in stunned horror. My mother had her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My father looked like a ghost, all the color drained from his skin. He took a hesitant step forward. "Son, please, stop. We can fix this." "No, you can't," I yelled, pausing to point the head of the hammer at him. "You can't fix this. You sold it. You cashed the check on my life's work, and you didn't even have the decency to tell me. You let me find out from them." I gestured at the Millers. "Did you really think I wouldn't care? That I would just say, 'Oh, well, there goes 80 grand and 2 years of my life, but hey, congratulations on the sale.'" The wail of a siren began to cut through the suburban quiet. It was getting closer. Good. The audience was arriving. That didn't stop me. I moved from the patio to the low, curved stone wall that bordered the main flower bed. I had spent a month building that wall, fitting each stone by hand like a puzzle. It took 3 swings to knock the first capstone loose. 2 more, and a whole section crumbled into a pile of rubble. The beautiful Japanese painted ferns I'd planted behind it were now covered in dust and debris. It was ugly. It was heartbreaking. And it was absolutely necessary. The police cruiser pulled into the driveway, its lights flashing silently, painting the scene in strobing blues and reds. 2 officers got out, a man and a woman, their expressions hardening as they took in the chaos. The Millers rushed towards them, both talking at once, pointing at me, at the ruined pond, at the shattered patio. "He's destroying the property. He attacked my husband. He's completely out of control," Mrs. Miller wailed. I dropped the sledgehammer. It landed with a heavy thud on the grass, the one part of the yard I hadn't touched yet. I raised my hands slowly, showing they were empty. The male officer unholstered his weapon, keeping it pointed down but ready. "Sir, step away from the hammer and keep your hands where I can see them." I complied, taking a few steps back onto the ruined patio. "I'm not a threat," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm just reclaiming what's mine." My parents finally seemed to snap out of their trance. My mom ran to the officers. "Please, he's not a bad kid. He's just upset. It's all a misunderstanding." The female officer held up a hand to stop her. "Ma'am, please stay back. What's your name, son?" she asked, her eyes scanning the wreckage before settling on me. I told her my name. Mr. Miller interrupted. "He's a vandal, officer. We have a signed purchase agreement for this house, including this backyard. He's caused hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages." The officer looked at me, an eyebrow raised. "Is that true? Do they have a contract to buy this house?" "They have a contract to buy my parents' house," I said clearly and calmly. "They do not have a contract to buy my garden. This," I swept my arm around to encompass the ruined walls, the dead pond, the shattered stones. "This is all mine, and I have the paperwork to prove it." My dad flinched as if I'd slapped him. The officer turned to him. "Sir, is this your son?" My dad nodded numbly. "And what's this about paperwork?" she asked. My dad couldn't speak. He just stared at the ground. So I answered for him. 2 years ago, before I started any of this, my parents signed a simple contract I wrote up. It states that all fixtures and landscaping installed by me, using my inheritance money, remain my personal property, separate from the real estate. I can show you the notarized document. It's in my room. The 2 officers exchanged a look. The smug, furious expression on Mr. Miller's face began to falter, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. This wasn't the open and shut case of vandalism he thought he was calling in. This was something else entirely. The female officer spoke into her radio, her voice low. Then she looked back at me. "Okay, let's see this paperwork. But I want to be very clear. The destruction stops. Now. Do you understand?" "Oh, I understand," I said, looking not at her but past her, at the magnificent Japanese maple tree standing tall near the back fence. It was the single most expensive item in the garden. Its delicate blood-red leaves seemed to tremble in the evening light. It was the soul of the entire design, and it was, according to my contract, unequivocally mine. "I'm done with the demolition," I told her. "Now it's time for the removal." A slow, cold smile spread across my face as I saw the flicker of understanding, then pure horror, dawn in my father's eyes. He knew exactly which line item in my budget had the words, "Professional Tree Spade and Relocation Service," next to it. The female officer, whose name I learned was Officer Grant, escorted me inside to get the document. My mother tried to follow us, whispering my name, but Officer Grant calmly told her to wait outside. The house felt alien, the air thick with tension. I walked into my room, past posters of famous gardens and stacks of landscaping books, and pulled a small locked metal box from my closet. Inside, beneath my passport and birth certificate, was the contract. It was a single page, typed up by me and signed in blue ink by my parents, with a notary's stamp at the bottom. It was simple, straightforward, and utterly devastating for them. Back outside, the flashing lights of the cruiser cast long, dancing shadows across the wreckage. I handed the document to Officer Grant. She read it, then passed it to her partner. He read it and whistled softly. Mr. Miller, who had been impatiently hovering, snatched the paper from the officer's hand. His face went through a fascinating series of colors as he read, from angry red to a pasty, sick-looking white. He thrust the paper at my father. "You signed this? You signed this piece of insanity and didn't disclose it?" My father, who seemed to have aged 10 years in the last hour, couldn't even look at him. "It was just a game," he mumbled, his voice cracking. "A hobby. We never thought it would be like this." "Like what?" I cut in, my voice ringing with cold fury. "Worth something? You were happy enough for it to be worth something when it was adding $100,000 to your asking price. You just didn't think I was worth anything." Mrs. Miller finally found her voice. "This is fraud. You deliberately misrepresented the property. Our lawyer will have a field day with this." She turned on her heel and marched towards her car, furiously typing on her phone. Mr. Miller threw the contract on the ground and stormed after her. The sale was dead. I knew it. They knew it. My parents knew it. Their dream of an easy, profitable sale had just crumbled into dust, just like my patio. Officer Grant handed the paper back to me. "Well," she said with a sigh, "this is a civil matter. A ridiculously messy one, but civil nonetheless. No crime has been committed here. You can't vandalize what you legally own." She gave me a long, searching look. "But I'd suggest you find somewhere else to stay for a while. And I'd advise the rest of you," she said, looking at my parents, "to find a very good lawyer." With that, the officers got in their cruiser and drove away, leaving the four of us standing in the ruins under the silent, blinking porch light. The silence that followed was the worst part. My mother was crying softly. My father just stood there, a hollowed-out man. I looked at the beautiful house I grew up in, and I felt nothing. It wasn't my home anymore. "I'll be gone in the morning," I said, my voice flat. I turned and went back inside, locking my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. I spent the night online making calls. The next morning, just as the sun was rising, a massive truck rumbled down our quiet suburban street. It was a tree spade, a behemoth with 4 giant hydraulic blades designed to scoop a mature tree and its entire root ball right out of the ground. It was followed by a flatbed truck with a crane. My crew had arrived. When my parents saw it, they finally understood I wasn't bluffing. My dad ran out, waving his arms. "You can't do this. That tree is part of the property." "Not according to this," I said, holding up my copy of the contract. The foreman of the crew, a burly guy named Sal, took the paper and read it. He grunted. "Paperwork looks good to me. You heard him, boys. Let's get to work." It was a surgical, brutal operation. The giant spade encircled the Japanese maple, my pride and joy, and hydraulically pushed its blades deep into the earth I had so carefully enriched. With a great groan of metal and tearing roots, it lifted my $5,000 tree out of the ground, a perfect cone of earth held in its steel embrace. My mother watched from the window, her face a mask of grief. This was a pain she could finally understand, not the betrayal, not the theft of my inheritance, but the tangible loss of something beautiful. The crew was ruthlessly efficient. They dismantled the cedar pergola, piece by marked piece. They pulled up the entire low-voltage lighting system, rolling up the wires and packing the fixtures. They even siphoned the water and sludge from the pond and removed the expensive pump and filtration system. By noon, the backyard was gone. All that remained was scarred earth, piles of rubble, and a gaping, muddy hole where the maple tree used to be. It was worse than when I started. It was a graveyard. My inheritance was gone, but I had reclaimed its components. I had the tree, the pergola, the stones, the equipment. I had my property. I loaded the last of my personal belongings into my car. My parents stood in the doorway watching me. "Where will you go?" my mom asked, her voice small. "I rented a little place with a big empty yard," I told them. "I've got a new canvas." I didn't say goodbye. I just got in my car and drove away. I didn't look back. The pain of what I'd lost, of what I'd been forced to destroy, was immense. But beneath it, a tiny, resilient seed was sprouting. The seed of a new beginning, planted in soil I knew, this time, would be entirely my own.